I don't know if I was a mistake, but if I go by what my father said the day my mother told him she was pregnant, I can guess the answer. You did this on purpose, didn't you, Lisa? You think this baby will make me stay? My father snarled, his eyes burning with anger. My mother, only 26 at the time, stood frozen in the cramped living room, her arms wrapped around her stomach as if trying to shield me from his cruel words. My name is Emily, and even before I was born, my existence was a problem. My father, Mark, was never the family man type. He lived recklessly, spent money without a second thought, and was always chasing something new, something exciting, anything but the responsibilities of being a husband and father. He met my mother at a weekend party, and 6 months later, they rushed into marriage for a love that, perhaps, never truly existed. A child like me was never part of his plans. The first years of my life were filled with endless arguments. My mother longed for stability, while my father only wanted to escape anything that tied him down. They fought about money, about unpaid bills, about my father coming home late, smelling of alcohol. Sometimes, I was the reason for their fights. She needs a father, Mark. You can't just keep running away, my mother screamed one night. My father only scoffed. A father? What do you expect me to be, some perfect role model? Sorry, but that's not the life I signed up for. And so, the fights went on for the first 4 years of my life. I don't remember much, but the faded memories still haunt me. The sound of shattering glass, my mother's muffled sobs behind closed doors, the irritated look in my father's eyes whenever he glanced at me. Until one day, my mother decided to end it all. When I was 4, she filed for divorce. And by the time I turned 5, my father was gone without a word. No new address, no phone number, no birthday card, no child support. He vanished as if he had never existed, leaving my mother and me in our old apartment in a small Texas town. The neighbors whispered about my mother, about how she had tied down the wrong man. My mother never spoke of him again, except in moments of anger. A coward, she would say, not a shred of responsibility. Growing up, I learned one thing. Sometimes, family isn't where you find warmth. Sometimes, it's just a place where people leave you behind without looking back. If there was one thing my father left me, it was Grandma Margaret. My mother never spoke about my father, but Grandma Margaret did. She was the only person from his side of the family who still cared about me. When I was little, I didn't know much about her. Just that she would visit our tiny apartment, bringing cookies wrapped in foil and a sad look whenever she saw my mother. Whenever she came, my mother would greet her coldly and find an excuse to stay busy, avoiding sitting with her for too long. Grandma Margaret never reacted to my mother's coldness. She would only smile, bend down, brush my brown hair aside, and say, "You have your father's eyes, Emily." Every weekend, she would take me to her house. A small place, but so much warmer than where I lived. It was a completely different world. No fights, no heavy silence, just the scent of peppermint tea and stories about the past. She told me about my father's childhood. About how he was once a mischievous but bright boy, full of dreams. "Before he became a terrible man, your father was a good child," she said once, her voice heavy with sadness. I loved my weekends at her house. She let me help her bake, read books with me in her sunlit living room, and sometimes we would just sit together in silence. Grandma Margaret never asked about my mother or my life at home. She was simply there. Patient, gentle. Something I had never had with my mother. But when I turned 8, everything changed. One Tuesday evening, my mother got a phone call. I remember she was cooking dinner, and when she heard the voice on the other end, she froze. I had never seen her face turn so pale. "Grab your coat, Emily," she said, her voice unfamiliar. "We need to go to your grandmother's house." My breath caught in my throat. This was the first time my mother was taking me there instead of just letting Grandma pick me up. That night, her usually warm home felt different. She lay in bed, looking smaller than ever. A stack of documents sat on the wooden table beside her, and a man I didn't recognize, who I later learned was her lawyer, Mr. Peterson, stood quietly in the corner. "Lisa, Emily, thank you for coming," she said, her voice weaker than usual, but still carrying that familiar kindness. "There's something important I need to say." My mother rarely listened to her, but tonight, she sat down without a word of protest. That scared me more than anything else. Grandma Margaret took a slow, deep breath before speaking. "I don't have much time left, and I need to set things in order. This house and part of my assets will go to your aunt, Irene. But..." She paused, turning to me with a soft look. "I've set up an education fund for you, Emily. It will help you go to college, to build a future that no one can take away from you." I stared at her, not fully understanding. But my mother did. I saw her sit up straight, her hands clenched on her lap. And for the first time that night, I felt something from her. Not sadness, but suspicion. "Education fund?" my mother asked, her voice no longer hesitant. Mr. Peterson nodded. "This money can only be used for educational purposes. When Emily turns 18, she will have full control over it." I didn't realize it at the time, but in that moment, something shifted in my mother. A long silence filled the room. Grandma Margaret sighed, taking my hand, her gaze warm but weary. "I just want you to have a chance, Emily. No matter what happens, I hope you remember that I always believe in you." That night, as my mother and I left Grandma Margaret's house, I turned back for one last look. I didn't know why, but I felt like I had to remember that moment. As if, somehow, I already knew it would be the last time I saw her like this. Grandma Margaret passed away not long after. It all happened too fast. One day she was telling me stories about my father, and the next, she was in the hospital. A week later she was gone. Her funeral was small and simple, with only a handful of relatives and close neighbors. I stood beside my mother, clutching her hand, but she didn't hold mine back. Ever since Grandma Margaret had announced the education fund, I had sensed something change in her. After the funeral, life went on as if nothing had happened. But deep down, I knew something was coming. A storm I couldn't yet predict. 2 years later it arrived. My mother met Daniel, a successful man in finance. He was tall, well-dressed, drove a sleek car, and always carried a charming smile. Unlike my father, Daniel was organized and responsible. Or at least, that's what my mother believed. They had known each other for less than a year when my mother announced they were getting married. "Daniel is a good man, Emily," she said over dinner. "He's going to give us a better life." I didn't argue. Not because I believed her, but because I had long since accepted that my opinions didn't matter in her decisions. But what surprised me the most was that Daniel had a daughter my age. Her name was Madison. When they moved in with us, I was excited. I had always wanted a sibling. Someone to share movie nights with, to exchange secrets with. Someone who might understand me in ways my mother never did. I cleaned up our room, placed a small welcome sign on Madison's bed, and arranged my favorite books on the shelf, hoping she liked reading as much as I did. But when Madison walked in, she barely glanced at the room, wrinkled her nose, and turned to Daniel. "So I have to share a room with her?" she asked, her tone dripping with displeasure. Daniel placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder and smiled. "If you don't like it, sweetheart, I'll make other arrangements for you." My mother was there too. I turned to her, expecting her to say something, anything. But she only nodded. "If Madison wants her own space, I think we can make that happen." And just like that, Madison got her own room. And I quickly realized it wasn't just the room. My mother wasn't mine anymore either. Madison became the center of everything. My mother cared for her in ways she never had for me. Madison wanted to try dance? My mother immediately enrolled her in the most expensive class in town. Madison was into fashion? My mother spent entire weekends taking her shopping, their arms filled with designer bags. And me? I wore clothes from the clearance rack at the mall. I walked home alone, did my homework in an empty room, and ate dinner in silence while my mother and Daniel laughed with Madison. Every day, I felt myself fading away. One time, I proudly brought home a perfect score on my math test. I stood at the dinner table, holding up the paper, hoping for a small moment of recognition. "Mom, I got an A+ on my test." She glanced up and smiled, but before she could say anything, Madison interrupted. "Mom, I just got chosen for the lead group in my dance class." And just like that, the conversation shifted. "That's amazing, sweetheart," my mother beamed, pulling Madison into a hug. The test paper trembled in my hand. That was the moment I realized I didn't matter anymore. My mother didn't need me. Madison had taken my place. Or maybe, she had never wanted me there to begin with. I can't pinpoint the exact moment I knew I wasn't part of this family anymore. Maybe it was when Madison walked in with brand new designer shoes, while I still wore my scuffed sneakers. Or maybe it was when my mother took Madison to a spa weekend and left me home with a pile of textbooks. But perhaps the clearest moment was one night when I overheard my mother and Daniel talking in the kitchen. "Madison should attend Westbridge Academy," Daniel said firmly. Westbridge was one of the most prestigious private schools in the area. Outrageously expensive and filled with wealthy students. "We'll make it work, won't we, Lisa?" My mother was silent for a few seconds. Then she sighed. "Yes, of course, Madison deserves the best environment." I stepped into the kitchen, my chest heavy. "What about me?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. My mother turned to look at me, momentarily surprised, as if she had forgotten I was there. "You'll continue at Lincoln High, Emily, it's still a good school." I had already expected that answer, but it didn't stop the wave of disappointment from washing over me. "But if Madison gets to go to Westbridge, why can't I?" I asked, refusing to back down. Daniel spoke before my mother could. "Emily, you're doing great at Lincoln, there's no need for you to change schools." My mother nodded in agreement, her eyes fixed on the coffee cup in front of her. "Westbridge isn't the right fit for you, Emily. You'll be fine in public school." Fine. That was the word they always used for me. I didn't need the best. I just needed to be fine. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying everything in my head. I knew I couldn't change the way they saw me. I would never be Madison in their eyes. I wouldn't get to attend an elite school. I wouldn't be given the best opportunities. But I could still take control of my own future. I stopped trying to win my mother's attention. I stopped showing off my grades, stopped trying to join family conversations where I was always pushed aside. Instead, I focused on my studies. I buried myself in books, spent more time in the library than at home. I joined the academic decathlon team, signed up for the debate club, sought out teachers for extra guidance. I couldn't change their favoritism, but I could carve out my own path. And I did. By senior year, I had the highest grades in my class, earned praise from my teachers, and was even nominated for Student of the Year. I wasn't doing it to make my mother proud anymore. I did it because I deserved it, whether they cared or not. 2 weeks before my 18th birthday, my mother called me downstairs with a tone I didn't recognize. I knew something was wrong the moment I walked in. Daniel sat stiffly on the couch. My mother sat across from me, her expression tense. And Madison, unsurprisingly, was seated next to her father. But this time, she wasn't looking at me with annoyance. Instead, she seemed expectant. My mother gestured to the empty chair in front of them. "Sit down, Emily, we need to talk." Slowly, I sat, feeling the tension thick in the air. Daniel spoke first. "Emily, we know you're about to enter an important stage in your life. College, your future, this is a big milestone." I nodded, waiting to see where this was going. "The thing is," my mother interjected, her voice softer, almost calculated, "Madison is also preparing for college, and things haven't gone as we hoped." My stomach clenched. I knew what was coming. Daniel sighed. "Madison applied to several prestigious schools, but unfortunately she didn't receive any scholarships. Schools like Brown and UCLA are extremely expensive, and as much as we'd love to help, our finances just can't cover that cost." I clenched my hands in my lap. "And what does that have to do with me?" I asked, even though I already knew the answer. My mother exchanged a glance with Daniel before turning back to me. Emily, you have the college fund Grandma Margaret left for you. Her voice was slow, careful. You've been awarded a full scholarship to Texas State University, so you won't need to use that money. But Madison? She does. Madison turned to me then, and for the first time in years her expression wasn't smug or dismissive. Instead, it was filled with fake hope. If you agree to share your college fund with Madison, it would help her attend a better school, my mother continued. Family helps each other, Emily. You understand that, don't you? The room fell silent. I looked at each of them. My mother, who had never truly cared about my future. Daniel, who saw me as nothing more than an extra obligation. And Madison, who had always been given more than I ever had. I took a deep breath. No one moved for a few seconds. My answer rang through the room, clear and unwavering. My mother's expression darkened. Emily, don't be selfish, you don't even need that money. But it's mine, I replied, my voice calm but firm. Grandma left it for me, not for Madison. And it's meant for my education. Not to send her to an expensive school the family can't afford. Daniel's grip tightened on the armrest. Emily, you're being childish. You had the chance to help your sister. She's not my sister, I cut him off. His face turned red. But it was my mother who reacted the most. Emily, she snapped, her voice sharp as a blade. Do you even hear yourself? We are a family. And family helps each other. I let out a dry laugh, unable to hold back the bitterness anymore. Emily, since when was I ever part of this family? When Madison got everything while I was overlooked? When you said I was fine with whatever little you gave me? When Madison got to go to a private school while I was told public school was good enough for me? My mother said nothing, but her eyes turned ice cold. You'll regret this, she said, her voice eerily quiet. I stood up. No, I don't think I will. She rose to her feet as well, staring me down. Then let me be clear, she said, her voice void of emotion. If you don't share that money, then the day you turn 18, you're on your own. You won't be this family's responsibility anymore. My heart pounded in my chest, but I didn't look away. Fine, I said, then turned and walked away without looking back. After that tense family meeting, I knew my time was running out. That night I sat in my room, feeling like the world was closing in on me. I wasn't surprised that my mother had threatened to throw me out, but that didn't make the fear any less real. I had never lived on my own before. I didn't know what life outside would be like. But I knew one thing for sure. I wouldn't let them take away the last thing I had. The next morning, I called Mr. Carter, the lawyer who had worked with Grandma Margaret. The moment I heard his steady, reassuring voice, I felt a slight sense of relief. Hello, Emily, I've been expecting your call. I hesitated. You knew I'd call? He chuckled. Do you think your grandmother didn't see this coming? It turned out that Grandma Margaret had set up the college fund with such strict conditions that no one but me had any claim to it. Mr. Carter confirmed that the moment I turned 18, I would have full control. No one, not even my mother, could force me to share it with Madison. After that call, I started preparing in secret. I found a small apartment near my university. A modest studio, but enough to start fresh. I secured a part-time job at a cafe just a few blocks away, where the owner promised to hire me as soon as I officially moved in. Each night, after everyone was asleep, I quietly packed my belongings, bit by bit, making sure no one would notice. I wasn't a child clinging to the hope of being accepted by this family anymore. I was preparing to leave. My 18th birthday arrived faster than I expected. That morning, as I walked into the kitchen, my mother was already sitting at the table, arms crossed. Daniel stood beside her, his expression stern. Madison sat quietly, avoiding my gaze. Well, my mother said, her voice sharp. Have you changed your mind? I knew this was the final test. They were waiting, hoping I would cave so they could persuade me one last time. But I stood tall, met my mother's eyes, and said, No. my decision hasn't changed. No one moved at first. Then my mother slowly rose to her feet. Fine, she said, her tone eerily calm. Then get out of my house. My heart pounded, but I refused to let them see any hesitation. I'm ready, I said firmly. I walked up the stairs and grabbed the suitcases I had packed days before. I didn't give anyone the chance to stop me. As I came back down, Madison looked at me. Her expression, unreadable. There was a flicker of surprise, maybe even pity, but also relief. She knew I wouldn't be a problem for her anymore. I walked out the door. No one said goodbye. I left that house without looking back. The early morning air was cold, but I barely felt it. I pulled my suitcase along the sidewalk and got into the taxi I had booked the night before. As we drove away, I glanced into the rearview mirror, watching the house disappear behind me. No one stood at the door. No one watched me leave. But I didn't cry. I had a new apartment, a part-time job, and a college fund that was mine alone. I didn't need them. At least, that's what I kept telling myself. 3 days after I left, I started getting messages. Old classmates, teachers, even neighbors I had barely spoken to. Are you okay? What happened? Is it true what your mom said? I checked Facebook and immediately understood. My mother had posted a long, dramatic message, filled with grief and blame. Today is a heartbreaking day for me and my family. After everything we've done, my daughter has turned her back on us. I raised her, gave her a home, and when the family needed her support, she selfishly refused. She left without a second thought, abandoning her stepfather and sister in disappointment. It's painful to realize I raised such an ungrateful child. Below her post were endless comments from people who had no idea what really happened. Oh, sad, kids these days don't appreciate their parents at all. You lived off her mom for years and now does this? Unbelievable. I can't imagine how heartbreaking this must be for you. A bitter anger bubbled up inside me. I had endured their favoritism for years. I had stayed quiet while they gave Madison everything, while I was left to fend for myself. I had walked away silently, but they still wouldn't leave me alone. My mother wanted to paint me as the villain? Fine, then I would tell the truth. I opened my laptop, logged into my account, and started typing. Since my mother has chosen to make this public, I think I have the right to share the truth. I am not the ungrateful daughter she is portraying me as. I didn't leave out of selfishness. I left because I was forced to. I spent my entire childhood watching Madison, my stepfather's daughter, be favored over me again and again. When Madison got to attend a private school, I was told, "Public school is good enough for you." When Madison had designer clothes, I wore clearance rack items. When I earned straight A's, no one cared. But if Madison accomplished even the smallest thing, it was a celebration. And when I received a full-ride scholarship to college, my family wasn't proud. They didn't congratulate me. They didn't ask me what I wanted for my future. Instead, they demanded that I give up my college fund, the money my grandmother left for me, so that Madison could attend an expensive school. When I refused, I was called selfish. And then, they threw me out on my 18th birthday. I didn't choose to leave, I was forced to leave. So before anyone calls me ungrateful, think again, because maybe the truth isn't as simple as the story my mother is trying to sell. I hit post, and waited. At first my post only got a few likes, but within an hour the number had grown to hundreds. People started sharing it. I received a message from one of my old teachers. "I always knew you were a hardworking student, Emily. I'm so proud of you for standing up for yourself." Some neighbors left comments. I always wondered why Emily was treated differently. Now it all makes sense. The people who had defended my mother slowly went silent. Some even deleted their comments. That evening, I got a call from my mother. I stared at the screen, watching her name flash, but I didn't pick up. Instead, I blocked her number. I didn't owe them anything anymore. My life officially began the day I unlocked the door to my tiny apartment for the first time. It wasn't big, just a small studio with a single bed, a desk by the window and a tiny kitchenette. But it was mine. A place I could finally call home without walking on eggshells around favoritism or unfair accusations. I spent the afternoon unpacking, carefully arranging my things. Inside an old box, I found a photograph of Grandma Margaret, sitting in her garden, her warm smile as gentle as ever. I placed it on my desk, right next to a small lamp. Looking at it, I felt a warmth I hadn't felt in a long time. She knew I would need this. She had planned for my freedom, even when she wouldn't be here to see it. The next few days passed quickly. I started my part-time job at the cafe. The owner, a middle-aged man named Mike, was kind. He didn't ask about my past. He just gave me morning shifts, and occasionally let me take home leftover pastries at the end of the day. In the evenings, I sat at my desk, going over my college enrollment papers. The fund Grandma Margaret had left me was enough to cover my education for the next 4 years, but I decided to keep my job anyway. I wanted to take care of myself. I wanted to know I could stand on my own, without anyone else's help. I also cut off all contact with my mother, Daniel, and Madison. They were no longer part of my life. I didn't want to receive another guilt-tripping message from my mother, another lecture about how I had betrayed my family. For years I had fought for a place in that family, but the truth was, I had never really belonged there. And I no longer cared. One afternoon, while cleaning up at the cafe, my phone buzzed with a Facebook notification. "Emily, I just want to say I admire you. I went through something similar, and I know how painful it is. Stay strong." I was surprised to see that my post was still being shared. Strangers were reaching out to me, telling me that my story had helped them feel less alone. I couldn't change my past, but if it gave someone else the courage to stand up for themselves, maybe everything I had been through was worth it. A few weeks later, I stood at the gates of my university. The place where my new life would truly begin. No more comparisons to Madison, no more walking on eggshells around my mother, no more feeling invisible or unworthy. I stepped forward with the unwavering belief that I was finally on my own path, no longer in anyone's shadow. And with every step, I felt lighter than ever before. Emily's story is not just about escaping family injustice. It's a lesson in self-worth and independence. In life, not everyone who carries the title of family truly loves us. Sometimes, we have to accept that not everyone is worth our sacrifice. Emily chose her own path, leaving behind toxic relationships to build a future where she was free to make her own choices. Her story is a reminder that we have the right to protect what is ours, even if it means walking away alone. What do you think about Emily's story? Have you ever experienced favoritism or unfairness in your own family? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to follow the channel for more stories about family, life, and the lessons we all need to learn. I always wondered, if my father had been wealthier, would my mother have loved him? If he had earned more money, would my family have stayed together? Or would she have still found a reason to despise him, to trample on his dignity? My name is Isabella and this is my story. A story that, if you haven't lived through something similar, you might find hard to believe. That parents could treat their own child this way. As a child, I didn't really understand what was happening between my parents. I only knew that every day there were fights, mostly started by my mother. My father, David, worked as a technician at a manufacturing company. He didn't make a lot of money, but I remember that when he came home, he always smiled at me, pulled me into a hug, and asked about my day at school. I used to think that was enough, but to my mother, Angela, nothing was ever enough. She always looked at my father with disdain. "You call that making money? Wasting your whole day on some dead-end job?" I remember so clearly the day my father came home, his face filled with pride, telling my mother he had gotten a raise. He was so excited, thinking it would make her happy. But she just stared at him, lips curling into a mocking smirk. "That's it? I thought you finally got yourself a real job." I saw the smile fade from his face, as if someone had just drained the life out of him. Their marriage didn't last long. One day, my father packed his things and left, without a single word of complaint. I was too young to understand why he was gone. All I knew was that after he left, my mother became a completely different person. Or maybe she had always been that way and just no longer needed to hide it. She began playing the role of the struggling single mother in front of everyone. To the neighbors, co-workers, and relatives, she spun a story of an irresponsible man who abandoned his wife and child without a dime. "No one helps me," she would sigh dramatically. "I have to raise Isabella all on my own, working myself to the bone, barely getting a full night's sleep." Every time she said it, she looked exhausted, sometimes even teary-eyed. People believed her. They pitied her, and even as a child I could tell she enjoyed their sympathy. But the truth was, my father never abandoned me. He sent child support every month. It wasn't much, but it was enough to make my life better. I knew this because I saw my mother take a check out of the mailbox every month. She would hold it up, stare at it for a moment, then laugh bitterly. "Look at this, Isabella. Your father actually thinks this is enough to raise you? What a pathetic man." Then she would either rip up the check or shove it into a drawer, pretending it never existed. I grew up surrounded by lies. I didn't dare protest, didn't dare ask about my father, because I knew that whenever I mentioned him my mother's rage would explode. And when she was angry, things only got worse for me. I never understood why she hated him so much. But one thing was clear. She didn't love me either. I was just a tool, a prop for her performance. And I realized early on that in my mother's world, only one thing mattered. For a long time I thought my mother treated me horribly because she was cruel to everyone. But then I realized, she wasn't cruel to everyone. Because when the right man came along, she became a completely different person. I was about 10 years old when my mother met James. He was nearly 15 years older than her, wealthy, powerful, and most importantly, convinced that my mother was a struggling, single mother doing her best to raise a child alone. It didn't take much effort for her to make him believe that. To James, my mother was gentle, fragile, a devoted mother who had been unfairly beaten down by life. They got married after just 6 months of dating. I remember the wedding, a lavish event with fresh flowers, an expensive gown, and distinguished guests. But what I remember most wasn't the extravagance. It was the way my mother looked at me when everything was over. The fake sweetness was gone. The warm smiles had vanished. Instead, there was only irritation, as if I were nothing but a thorn in her side. After we moved into James's mansion, I quickly learned my place in this new family. I wasn't my mother's daughter anymore. I was an extra. At first, she was just indifferent. She forgot to do my laundry, leaving me to wear the same wrinkled, oversized hand-me-downs that the housekeeper managed to find. While my mother and James enjoyed lavish dinners with steak and wine, I was sent to the kitchen with a simple reminder. There's bread and peanut butter. But that wasn't the worst part. My mother started interfering with my schoolwork in ways I never expected. Assignments I had spent hours working on mysteriously disappeared from my backpack. When I asked, she just shrugged. "Maybe you should be more careful." My grades dropped. Teachers started calling home. For the first time, I felt a spark of hope. If my teachers knew something was wrong, maybe they could help me. But my mother only smiled sweetly at them over the phone. "I'm really worried too. She's just been so distracted lately, always playing around instead of focusing." And just like that, the problem became my fault. But the worst was yet to come. One day, my mother announced that she was pregnant. James was overjoyed, and once again she fully embraced her role as the delicate, vulnerable woman in need of care. "You need to be more responsible now, Isabella," she told me, one hand resting on her stomach, even though there was no sign of pregnancy yet. "I need to rest. I'm counting on you." I didn't need anyone to explain what that meant. I had already stopped being her daughter, but now I wasn't even a child anymore. I was a maid, a ghost in my own home. And the scariest part? No one noticed. Except me. I don't know exactly when I started thinking about leaving. Maybe it was the night I stayed up scrubbing dishes while my mother lounged on the couch, complaining about her aching back. Maybe it was the morning I went to school hungry because my mother had, accidentally, forgotten to make me breakfast, while the table was still covered in leftover pancakes and eggs from her and James's meal. Or maybe it was when I realized that, no matter what I did, I would never be part of this family. One night, as I cleaned up the living room after dinner, James walked by and frowned at me. "Isabella, you look thinner than before." He turned to my mother, who was scrolling through her phone, lounging against a pillow. "Angela, are you sure she's eating properly?" She didn't even look up, just shrugged and smirked. "She's just going through puberty. Probably losing her appetite." I stood there, gripping the dishcloth, heart pounding. James seemed mildly concerned, but he didn't press the issue, and life went on as usual. I knew then, if I didn't save myself, no one would. That night, when everyone was asleep, I snuck my phone out and called my father. I wasn't sure if he would answer, we hadn't spoken in years. But on the third ring, his voice came through. "Isabella?" I almost broke down at the sound of it. I tried to keep my voice steady, but it trembled anyway. "Dad? I can't stay here anymore." There was a long pause. I held my breath, afraid he would say there was nothing he could do. But then his voice came through. Firm and steady. "Pack your things, I'm coming." The next morning, my heart pounded as I carried my small suitcase down the stairs. My mother stood in the kitchen doorway, arms crossed, eyes cold. "Where do you think you're going, Isabella?" I swallowed hard. "I'm going to live with Dad." Instead of anger or surprise, she simply raised an eyebrow and slowly nodded, as if she had been expecting it. Then she smiled. A strange smile, empty of sadness or regret. "Good. James and I could use the extra space for the baby." Her words stunned me. I had expected something, a little sadness, a little hesitation. But I realized, to her, I had never really belonged. I was just something to be discarded. As I stepped outside, my father's car was already waiting. He got out, his eyes filled with concern. Without a word, he opened his arms, and I ran into them. For the first time in years, I felt safe. I didn't look back. I knew my mother wouldn't be standing there watching me leave, because to her, I had never truly mattered. But to my father, I was everything. And that was all I needed. My life changed completely from the day my father took me away. I still remember the first moment I stepped into my father's apartment. A place that wasn't big or luxurious, but warm, and filled with care. Everything was neat and organized, with a room just for me. He didn't ask much about my past life with my mother. He simply said, "You don't have to look back anymore. We can start fresh now." And he kept that promise. My father worked harder than anyone I had ever known. He left his old job and started his own small tech company. I watched him build it from the ground up. Through the stressful days of financial struggles, the first contracts, and slowly, the company began to grow. When I was 14, we moved into a nicer home. When I was 16, he bought me my first car. Not a luxury vehicle, but an old sedan. Enough to give me the freedom to get around on my own. I no longer had to worry about food or dirty clothes. I was no longer invisible in my own home. I went to a good school, was encouraged to pursue my dreams, and for the first time, I felt genuine love from a family member. The years passed by like the wind. I threw myself into my studies, earned top grades, and participated in extracurricular activities. I didn't just want to succeed. I wanted to prove that I could do anything, that I was no longer the abandoned little girl my mother had left behind. When I graduated high school with honors, I received a scholarship to a prestigious university. My father cried at my graduation ceremony. He hugged me tightly and whispered, "I always knew you could do it." And I believed him, because he was the first person who had ever truly believed in me. 4 years of college flew by. I graduated with honors, and on that day my father handed me a special gift, a small apartment in the city. Consider it a reward for everything you've accomplished, he said, holding out the keys. I was speechless. I just hugged him, knowing that everything he did was always for me. I thought my life had finally become perfect. But then, the nightmare began. My father got sick. I found out when I received a call from the hospital. A cold, merciless diagnosis: terminal cancer. My world shattered in an instant. I couldn't imagine a life without my father in it. The following months, I quit my job and moved back in with him, dedicating all my time to his care. I sought every possible treatment, consulted the best doctors. But his condition worsened. One evening, as I helped him lie down in bed, he held my hand, his voice weak but steady. Isabella? Promise me one thing. I nodded, my eyes burning. Be happy, don't let the past hold you back, live the life you deserve. I wanted to tell him he would be okay, that I would find a way to save him. But I knew I couldn't lie. I just squeezed his hand and whispered, I promise. 2 weeks later, he passed away. I was by his side until the very end, holding the hand that had protected me for so many years. I didn't cry on the day he died. I only felt empty. But I knew a storm was coming. And I had no idea that the woman who had abandoned me all those years ago, my mother, was about to return. 3 weeks after my father's funeral, I received a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't pick up. But a part of me, the part that was still drowning in grief and loneliness, pressed the button. Isabella? It's your mother. The voice made me freeze. How many years had it been? 7, 8? Since the day I left her house, she had never called, never checked in on me. But now, with my father gone, she had suddenly appeared. How are you, sweetheart? I hesitated. Sweetheart? Since when was I her sweetheart? I heard about your father. I'm so sorry, Isabella. I know how close you two were. I just wanted to say that if you need someone to talk to, I'm here. I didn't know how to respond. Part of me wanted to hang up immediately, but another part, the little girl inside me who had once longed for her mother's love, hesitated. Thanks, I said stiffly. She continued, her voice soft, as if nothing had ever happened between us. I think it's time for us to reconnect. I miss you so much, Isabella. I was wrong to let you go like that. I didn't believe her. I couldn't, but in that moment I was too exhausted to argue. I just muttered, "Let's talk later, Mom," and hung up. But she didn't stop. In the days that followed, she called more often. At first, I ignored her. But as my apartment felt emptier and lonelier, I started answering. At first, her calls were simple, asking about my job, my life, how I was coping with my father's death. She said the words I had once wished to hear from her. And I started to believe that maybe, just maybe, she had changed. But then, inevitably, the conversations shifted. James is struggling with work, you know, the economy is so tough these days. Thomas is going to college soon and tuition is so expensive, I honestly don't know how we'll manage. I don't want you to think I'm calling because of money, I just needed someone to talk to, but could you help a little? Just so I don't have to worry so much. At first I said no. But my mother was never one to give up easily. I don't know why I gave in, maybe I was too tired to fight, maybe a part of me still craved family. Maybe I just wanted to believe in her one last time. To see if she had truly changed. So I sent her money. Just a small amount at first. A little to help Thomas with his SAT prep. A little to fix her car. But it didn't stop there. She started calling more often. The small favors turned into bigger ones. And little by little, I found myself being pulled back into the cycle I had sworn never to return to. The call came on a Saturday afternoon, as I sat on my balcony sipping coffee, savoring a rare moment of peace after a long work week. Isabella, I have something to talk to you about. My mother's voice was light, almost excited. I sighed. Lately, every time she said that, I knew it wouldn't be good. You know, our family hasn't had a real vacation in years. James works so hard, Thomas is about to start college, and as for me? Well, you know, I've never had the chance to travel properly. She paused, as if waiting for my reaction. When I stayed silent, she continued, lowering her voice as if sharing a deep, personal secret. I just found an amazing European tour package. I mean, it's a rare opportunity, a family experience that I truly believe will bring us closer together. And I was thinking, maybe you could help me out a little. I set my coffee down, an uneasy feeling rising in my chest. Help you? You mean you want me to pay for this trip? I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. Oh, Isabella, don't say it like that. You know James and I aren't in the best financial situation. This isn't just about money, it's about family. We can finally make up for lost time. I closed my eyes, trying to suppress the disappointment swelling inside me. I had seen this coming for a while now, yet I had still been foolish enough to hope that my mother genuinely wanted to reconnect with me, not just squeeze money out of me. No, Mom, I said firmly. There was silence for a few seconds before she let out a laugh, her voice laced with feigned disappointment. You are so selfish, Isabella. Do you have any idea how much I've sacrificed for you? I just wanted a small vacation and you can't even do that for me? I gripped my phone tightly, forcing myself to stay calm. You never sacrificed for me. You never have. All you've ever done is use me. I heard my mother inhale sharply. When she spoke again, her tone had shifted. Cold and venomous. You're just like your father. Cold, ungrateful, only thinking about yourself. I let out a bitter chuckle. If I'm like Dad, then good. Because at least he truly loved me. She sucked in a furious breath. You'll regret this, Isabella. Don't think you can just turn your back on your family and still live a happy life. I didn't respond, I just hung up. The very next day, I received an offer to travel abroad for a month on a work assignment. I didn't even hesitate. I accepted immediately. I needed to get away, to clear my head. I had let my mother back into my life for far too long. And this time I swore I wouldn't make the same mistake again. After a month abroad, I returned home feeling lighter. Distance had given me the clarity I needed. I had made my decision. My mother would no longer have a place in my life. It was late at night when I arrived at my apartment complex. Dragging my suitcase up the steps, I felt exhausted, but relieved to be back in my familiar space. All I wanted was to collapse into my bed and finally enjoy the peace I had been missing for so long. But when I slid my key into the lock, it wouldn't turn. I frowned and tried again, still nothing. My heart began to pound. Could the building have changed the locks while I was away without notifying me? I stepped back and examined the door. No signs of forced entry, no damage. And then, the door opened. A woman in her mid-30s stood in the doorway, looking at me warily. Behind her, a man, presumably her husband, stepped forward. His expression puzzled. "Who are you?" the woman asked. I froze. Every nerve in my body tensed. "I'm the owner of this apartment. This is my home," I said, my voice dry. The woman and her husband exchanged glances. The man slowly shook his head. "No, this is our home. We bought it 3 weeks ago." My entire body went cold. It felt like someone had just punched me in the stomach. "What?" I whispered, unable to believe what I was hearing. "We purchased it from a woman named Angela. Angela Hudson." My heart plummeted. My mother. No. No, she wouldn't. She couldn't have. There must be some mistake. I never sold this apartment, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, but I could hear the tremor in it. The woman hesitated, then stepped inside and returned with a stack of documents. She held them out to me. "We have all the paperwork. Sale contracts, notarized signatures, everything is legal. If you need clarification, you should probably speak to your lawyer." My hands shook as I took the documents, flipping through the pages. And then I saw it. My signature. Or, rather, a forgery of my signature. My entire body went numb. My mother had forged my name to sell my apartment. I took a deep breath, trying to contain the fury boiling inside me. I couldn't stand there any longer. I mumbled an apology, turned on my heel and walked away from the building. There was no doubt about it. I had been betrayed, again. And this time she had gone too far. I stood in front of my mother's house, gripping my phone tightly, my breath coming in angry bursts. I had driven for half an hour without even remembering the roads I had taken, my mind consumed by one thought: the forged contract and the name Angela Hudson on it. My mother had sold my home. She had signed my name on the paperwork as if I didn't exist, as if I were nothing more than a resource to be exploited whenever she pleased. I pounded on the door with all my strength. Seconds later, it swung open. There she stood, draped in a silky cream robe, a wineglass in hand, looking as if nothing in the world was wrong. "Oh, Isabella, sweetheart. I wasn't expecting you to drop by unannounced," she said, tilting her head, her voice dripping with fake warmth. I stared at her, my heart pounding. I couldn't believe this woman had given birth to me. "What did you do?" I ground out, forcing myself to stay calm. She took a slow sip of wine and casually stepped aside, motioning for me to come in. But I didn't move. "I have no idea what you're talking about, Isabella. Why are you so worked up?" I yanked my phone out of my pocket, pulled up a picture of the sale contract, and thrust it in front of her. "My apartment. You forged my signature and sold it." My voice shook with rage. She glanced at the screen, then laughed. A soft, airy laugh that sent chills down my spine. "Oh, that." She shrugged. "You know, you have so much, Isabella. More than you need. You live in luxury, have a stable career, and yet, you're so stingy." I went rigid. "Stingy?" I repeated, barely believing what I was hearing. She took another sip of wine, her eyes gleaming with amusement. "Family is about sharing, Isabella. I've sacrificed so much for you. Don't you think it's time you gave back?" Rage erupted inside me like wildfire. "Gave back?" I hissed. "You never treated me like your daughter. You never loved me. And now? You steal from me and try to justify it with this pathetic excuse." My mother set her wineglass down, crossed her arms, and her gaze sharpened. "So what are you going to do? Call the police? Let the whole world know you sued your own mother?" Her voice was laced with challenge. I looked at her, realizing for the first time that she had never believed I had the courage to stand against her. She thought I would endure it, just as I always had. That I would let her do whatever she wanted. But she was wrong. Slowly I pulled out my phone, holding it up in front of her, my eyes never leaving hers. "You're right," I said, my voice steady. "I'm calling the police." And for the first time, I saw my mother's smile disappear. The investigation moved faster than I had expected. As soon as I reported the case, the authorities got involved. Within weeks, all the forged documents, financial records, and my mother's fraudulent signatures were exposed. The truth was even uglier than I had imagined. My mother hadn't just sold my apartment. She was drowning in debt. Over the years, she had secretly borrowed money from various sources to maintain her lavish lifestyle. Extravagant parties, designer clothes, luxury vacations. To cover it up, she had forged financial documents, even faking James's signature to access more money. James was in shock when he learned the truth. I will never forget the look on his face as the lawyer laid out all the evidence. He sat frozen, his face pale, as if the world around him was crumbling. "What have you done, Angela?" James muttered, his voice strained. My mother, instead of the fear I had expected, simply crossed her arms, her expression cold. "I did what was necessary to protect my family," she said, as if defrauding and forging her own daughter's signature was some noble act. James shot to his feet, looking at her as if he were seeing a stranger. "Family? You've been lying to me for years. You don't care about anyone but yourself." Then he turned to the lawyer, his voice firm. "I want a divorce, immediately, and I will be taking full custody of Thomas. I will not let him stay with this woman for another day." My mother went pale. She opened her mouth to argue, but for the first time in her life no one believed her anymore. My mother's case went to trial just a few months later. The evidence against her was overwhelming. Fraudulent signatures, forged bank records, countless high-interest loans, and testimonies from other victims she had scammed over the years. On the day of her sentencing, I was in the courtroom. Defendant Angela Hudson, your actions were not just a case of financial fraud but a deep betrayal of those closest to you. The court hereby sentences you to 3 years in prison and orders full restitution of all misappropriated funds, including the proceeds from the sale of Isabella Hudson's apartment. The judge's words echoed in the silent courtroom. I didn't know what I expected to feel. Satisfaction? Anger? Relief? But when my mother was handcuffed and led away, she turned back to look at me, her eyes cold and filled with hatred. You think you've won? She hissed. You're nothing but an ungrateful child. Don't think you can just walk away from me. I held her gaze for a long moment, then slowly replied, We don't need to walk away, you destroyed yourself. And this time, I knew for certain, she would never find her way back into my life again. I stood in the living room of my new home, afternoon sunlight streaming through the large windows, reflecting off the polished hardwood floors. This wasn't a small apartment in the city anymore. This was a real home. With a lush green backyard, and enough space for me to finally breathe. After recovering the money from my mother's trial, I decided to buy a new house in the suburbs, far away from the memories of my past. I wanted a fresh start, a place where I could move forward without the weight of old wounds dragging me down. My job at the company my father built continued to thrive. I had spent the past year learning, rebuilding what he had created, and now, I was ready to continue his legacy. Every time I stepped into his old office, I could feel him there, watching, supporting me. James kept his word. He divorced my mother immediately after the trial, and won full custody of Thomas. I didn't know if the two of them still spoke, but I knew one thing for sure. Thomas was free from my mother's manipulation, and that was all that mattered. Thomas reached out to me after everything was over. Isabella, I don't know what to say. I'm sorry for everything Mom did to you. I remember the long silence before I finally responded. You don't have to apologize, you were a victim too, Thomas. I didn't hate him. He wasn't to blame. He was just a child caught in a family where lies and manipulation were the norm. Even so, I wasn't in a rush to rebuild our relationship. I needed time. Maybe one day we would become part of each other's lives again. But today was not that day. And my mother? I didn't know, and I didn't care. She had been removed from my life in a way that was irreversible. The letters from prison, the desperate phone calls. I ignored them all. I had given her too many chances, and I would never make that mistake again. Today, I stand at the threshold of a new life. No more manipulation. No more lies, exploitation, or helplessness. Just me, my life, and a future that I would build with my own hands. And for the first time ever, I feel truly free. Isabella's story is not just about escaping manipulation and betrayal. It's a lesson in self-worth and independence. In reality, many people find themselves trapped in toxic relationships where love is weaponized for personal gain. But like Isabella, we always have a choice. The choice to stand up, break free, and reclaim our lives. Because sometimes, family isn't defined by blood. It's defined by those who truly love and respect us.
I'm Morgan, 33 years old, working in finance in Denver, Colorado. People usually assume the eldest child is serious, quiet, maybe a little cold. As for me, I was defined by just 3 words: the one who carries. Since childhood, I got used to staying in the background and handling everything. Cleaning up after my sister's birthday parties, helping her with math homework late at night, canceling plans with friends just to pick her up from art class. Her name is Hannah, 4 years younger than me, always full of energy and the center of attention, especially for our mother, Sherelle. Even when I earned a scholarship to a state university, Mom barely nodded. Well, that's Morgan. She always does the right thing. But when Hannah got into a private art school with sky-high tuition, Mom screamed in the living room, "My daughter is so talented. I told you, Hannah brings color into this house." I remember that moment vividly, me standing there holding my semester budget spreadsheet while Mom hugged my sister like she'd just won a Grammy. My father, Ronald, was never one to speak up. He's gentle, calm, and always chose to step back when Mom made decisions. He could cook a lovely dinner for the whole family, but couldn't find the words to defend me when Mom criticized me in front of relatives. As a kid, I used to think, maybe it's because I'm the oldest. I have to sacrifice. But after decades, that excuse became just a shield for people to avoid responsibility and exploit my silence. Whenever Hannah messed up, Mom turned to me. "Morgan, you're the older sister. You should understand her. Give in to her." Whenever the family faced financial trouble, she'd say, "You have a good job. Helping out a little won't hurt." And when I was hurting, no one asked. No one paused to listen. I still remember the time I broke up with my long-term boyfriend, the one I thought I'd marry. I drove 3 hours home, hoping one hug from my mother would be enough. But when I walked through the door, she barely looked up and asked, "Where's Hannah? Didn't she come with you?" So I wanted to scream, "I'm the one who just got betrayed. Do you even care?" But I said nothing. I walked to my room, shut the door, and for the first time, felt completely alone in my own family. Hannah was different. One text from her, and Mom would leave a pot boiling on the stove just to be with her. She could forget to pay tuition and still get praised. She's an artist. Having financial sense is rare in creatives. I used to think time and maturity would bridge the gap between me and Mom. I was wrong. When Hannah graduated, Mom threw a grand party at a hotel, hired a professional photographer and a live band. When I got promoted to regional director, she said over the phone, "Wow, that title sounds big. Don't forget to take your dad and me for our checkups, okay?" No congratulations, no cake, just another task. I don't know what feels worse, being invisible or only being seen when someone needs something from me. Either way, I'd gotten used to it. And I thought that was the extent of it. Until Hannah's wedding was announced. Anna got engaged on a June afternoon, right after her first art exhibit at a small gallery in Boulder. When I walked into the room, the diamond ring was already shining on her finger and her eyes sparkled with joy. And proposed right after it ended. "Morgan, I can't believe it. I'm getting married." Hannah hugged me tightly, swaying with excitement. Surprised but genuinely happy, I smiled. "So my little sister's going to be a bride. Who's the maid of honor?" "You, of course. I can't do this without you." I hugged her back, thinking that maybe this time I'd finally be given a meaningful role, not out of obligation, but because I was chosen, because of love. In the following weeks, I threw myself into wedding planning like it was the biggest project of my life. I built a budget spreadsheet, mapped out every detail from floral arrangements to appetizer menus. We spent hours in my apartment sipping red wine and flipping through bridal catalogs, giggling like we were kids again. "Which color palette do you like better, dusty rose or emerald green?" "Dusty rose," she said. "Softer." "Great, I'll book sample fittings at both of your favorite shops. Don't worry, I'll cover the cost." Hannah nodded. "I'm so lucky to have you." That sentence kept me warm for weeks. I wired a $3,000 deposit to the photographer she adored, even though Mom disapproved. What a waste. "My friend can take decent pictures," she scoffed. I hired a team to craft handmade invitations, another $1,200. But it was exactly the vintage style Hannah loved since she was a kid. I even brought in a private chef, someone who'd catered for a celebrity wedding in Aspen, just because Hannah once sighed, "I want something truly unique, truly artistic." Every time I signed a check, I told myself, I'm doing this for Hannah, no one else. Then I decided on the ultimate wedding gift, a honeymoon in Santorini. I booked a boutique hotel with ocean views, a private pool, and nightly Greek cooking classes. First-class round-trip tickets, private transportation. I spent over $9,000. I wanted her to start her marriage with the kind of beauty and peace I had never been given. No one asked me to pay. I didn't want a flashy thank you. Just Hannah's smile was enough. Still, there were small signs that gave me pause, but I brushed them off. Once, I suggested hosting the bridal shower at a garden venue in town. Mom cut me off sharply. Too windy and expensive. Why must you always aim for luxury? Let me ask my friend. She planned a party for the mayor's son. I looked at Hannah, hoping she'd speak up. She only smiled weakly. It's okay, sis. Let Mom help a bit. Another time, I stumbled on a Facebook group chat called Team Bride. Mom, our cousin Rachel, some of Hannah's close friends were in it. I wasn't. When I asked, Hannah shrugged. Oh, it's just small stuff. You've been busy. Do you want me to stop helping? I asked quietly. Don't say that. I need you, but some people think you're a little intense. You understand, right? I nodded, but something quietly cracked inside me. I thought maybe I was being too sensitive, that wedding stress was making everyone snappy. What I didn't know was that those cracks were the beginning of something far more deliberate, an orchestrated collapse that everyone knew about, except me. Everything started to go off track on a Saturday morning when I got a short text from Hannah. Mom booked the church. It's gorgeous. You don't have to worry anymore. I froze. Touring churches had been the plan Hannah and I set for the coming weekend. I had even scheduled visits at 3 different locations around the city. I called her. She picked up after 3 rings, her voice both groggy and awkward. Mom really likes that church. It's close to home, and she knows the pastor. I thought it wouldn't hurt to let her take care of it, right? I smiled faintly, though a storm was already rising inside me. I thought this was your wedding, not Mom's. Silence. Then Hannah mumbled, You know how Mom is. Sometimes it's just easier to let her handle things. Easier for who? I didn't ask. From that point on, everything started slipping through my fingers like grains of sand. I wasn't told about the cake tasting, despite being the one who had sent Hannah a curated list of Denver's top bakeries. Photos of her and Mom smiling beside a 3-tier ivory cake showed up on Facebook with the caption, Love is when your mom picks the perfect flavor. It stung like a slap across the face. Suddenly, Rachel, my cousin, began showing up in every behind-the-scenes wedding picture. From dress fittings to meetings with the planner, there she was beside Hannah, arm in arm, beaming. I didn't even know when those meetings happened. No one had sent me any schedules. One day, I caught an Instagram story, Hannah, Rachel, and Mom trying on bridesmaid dresses at a fancy boutique. I texted Hannah, I thought you wanted me to come dress shopping with you. 2 hours later, she replied, Sorry, sis, Mom booked it last minute since Rachel's heading back to Arizona next week. We'll go together next fitting, I promise. That next fitting never happened. Every time I brought up my role, stationery design, music selection, seating charts, Mom had a way of brushing me off. Let Rachel take care of that. You're busy. Or, I already handled that. No need to trouble yourself. Or worse, Morgan, just handling the finances is more than enough. Don't try to do everything. People might think you're the bride. I had never seen someone turn rejection into such a sweet-sounding favor. I thought Hannah would see what was happening, but she never said anything. She never took my side. Not once did she push back on Mom. One afternoon, during our usual lunch at the Blue Hen, a mother-daughter tradition, Mom said bluntly, You should let Rachel be the maid of honor. You might be hardworking, but you don't understand aesthetics. Hannah needs someone more refined and less intense. I set my spoon down. Fury crawled through my fingers like fire. Excuse me? I'm just being honest. You micromanage too much. This is Hannah's day, not yours. Maybe you should learn to step back. Step back? After spending over $13,000? After sleepless nights budgeting and organizing? I stood up and walked away, leaving my soup untouched. I said nothing because I knew if I opened my mouth, everything would explode right then and there. And I wasn't ready to lose my sister. That night, I opened my laptop and stared at the wedding spreadsheet on Google Sheets. Venue deposit, $4,000. Dations, $1,100. Photographer's deposit, $2,750. Unannounced honeymoon deposit, $5,000. Nearly $13,000 in total, not including hundreds of hours of work or the pride I'd been slowly giving up. And still, I kept paying. Because deep down, I thought that maybe after the wedding, things would go back to how they used to be. Maybe Hannah would hug me and say, "You've always been the most important person in my life." I still had hope. I received an invitation to a family dinner on a Thursday evening, just weeks before Hannah's wedding. The text from Mom was short. "Everyone's gathering to finalize wedding matters. Be there by 7 sharp, don't be late." Tyler, my boyfriend, looked up from the kitchen counter as I read it. "Are you sure you want to go? Lately, they've been treating you like an outsider." I nodded, forcing a smile. Maybe they realized things went too far. Maybe this is their way of making it right. But deep down, I already knew. When I arrived, my parents' house in Lakewood looked as peaceful as ever. White painted porch, rows of pine trees lining the walkway, warm golden light spilling from the kitchen windows. Everything was so painfully familiar. Mom opened the door with a stiff smile. "Come in, everyone's waiting." The living room smelled overly perfumed and unnervingly quiet. My dad sat hunched in his recliner, gripping his tea like it was an anchor. Hannah sat beside Rachel on the long couch, avoiding my eyes. And Megan, yes, Megan, was planted in the middle seat where I used to sit, wearing a faint, smug smile. I stood. No one offered me a chair. "Morgan, we need to clarify a few things," Mom began in that flat, practiced tone I'd known since childhood, the voice of decisions already made. I looked at Hannah, hoping she'd say something, but she only looked down. "Here's the thing," Mom continued. "Everyone feels like your presence during the wedding planning has been stressful." I frowned. "Stressful? You always try to control everything, the guest list, the flowers, even the ceremony music. It's made people uncomfortable." "Who are people?" I looked around the room. No one answered. "We've had separate discussions. With Hannah, Rachel, your father," she said, lowering her voice. "And everyone agreed, it's best if you don't attend the wedding." I thought I misheard. "What did you say?" "You're not going to be a bridesmaid, and your name's not on the guest list." Dad shifted like he wanted to say something, but Mom cut in. "Ronald, don't complicate this." I turned to Hannah. "You staying silent means you agree with them?" My sister looked up, eyes red. "You're always so intense. I just want a peaceful wedding." I scoffed, not because it was funny, but because there was nothing left to say. Peaceful? So cutting me out entirely is the best way? Megan pressed her lips together, eyes daring me to argue. I turned to Mom. "Do you even know how much I've spent on this wedding?" "Morgan," she interrupted. "Money doesn't buy the right to manipulate people's emotions. And it doesn't guarantee you a place at every important event." Dad looked at me with quiet pleading, choosing silence again. I took a deep breath and stood taller. "Fine, if this is your decision, I'll respect it, but don't expect me to keep supporting things behind the scenes like before." Mom gave a thin smile. "No one's asking you to." I nodded, turned, and walked out of the room I once called family. No one followed, no one called after me. By the time I closed my car door, my hands were shaking, my whole body numb with shock. I don't remember the drive home, but Tyler was waiting on the steps, and the second he saw me, he knew. They shut me out. My voice didn't sound like my own. "No," he said quietly. "You stepped out, and that was the right thing to do." I sat on the kitchen floor, the cold wood grounding me like nothing else. This wasn't a misunderstanding, not wedding stress. They knew exactly what they were doing. And from this moment on, so did I. I woke up the next morning with swollen eyes and a mind still spiraling from the fall. Tyler was still asleep, his hand gently resting on my shoulder, a quiet reminder that I wasn't alone. But no one else could do what I needed to do next. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table with my laptop. The kitchen light was still off, just a dim glow from the gray Colorado sky leaking through the windows. First order of business, I reopened my bank account. The $5,000 payment for the honeymoon hotel in Santorini? Canceled. The business class flight? Contacted the airline. I got a partial refund just over $3,200. I quietly logged each detail. Santorini Suites. Canceled 6 nights, $5,000. Aegean Airlines, round-trip tickets canceled, $3,200. Private cooking class plus sunset cruise, refunded $750. And I sent a short email to the travel agent. The honeymoon trip is no longer needed. Please cancel all related services and send refund confirmations. Next, I opened the wedding expense spreadsheet, the one I created, the one that now no longer belonged in my life. Photographer paid $2,750. Invitations and design, $1,100. Welcome baskets for out-of-state guests, $1,400. Private tasting session, $2,000. Total, nearly $15,000 for a wedding I was no longer welcome at. It wasn't the money I mourned. It was myself. I opened my credit card app and changed the access setting to account holder only. No more mom, no more family charges I had recently found out were made without my consent. I found a charge labeled premium linens for reception for $780, charged to my card. I had never been asked. I filed a claim with the credit card company for unauthorized transaction. System response: your request is being processed. Then I sent a single message in the family group chat, the one I had never left, hoping someday things would get better. Morgan, I've withdrawn all wedding support. Payments, accounts, and credit cards have been canceled or reversed. Please don't try to reach out. I need space to protect myself. I hope that's respected. 15 minutes later, the phone rang. Mom, calling, lit up the screen. I didn't answer. 3 more calls from Hannah. 1 from Dad. Then the texts started flooding in. Cheryl, Mom, you're being petty and childish. After all these years of caring for you, now you turn your back just because of a little feedback? Hannah, what are you doing? This is the most important day of my life. You can't ruin it just because you're hurt. Ronald, Dad. Morgan, I know you're upset, but we can fix this. Don't make things worse. Worse? I had been cast out of their lives like a stranger, and now I was the one destroying everything? Tyler walked out, looked at me squarely. They're trying to pull you back into their cycle again, aren't they? I nodded slightly. He placed a hand on my shoulder. Not reacting is sometimes the strongest reaction. I stayed silent, and for the first time I let go, not in defeat, but in clarity. That afternoon, I pulled every wedding document out of the drawer. Receipts, table layouts, flower palettes, the leather notebook Hannah gave me when we first started, its cover embossed. The best maid of honor ever. I boxed it all up, sealed it with tape, and labeled it. No longer mine. I placed the box under the stairs, not to keep it, but to mark that I had left it behind, for good. 3 days after I withdrew all my support for the wedding, my phone rang at 7 a.m., a time usually reserved for emergencies or board meetings. The caller ID read, Andrew, Hannah's fiancé. His voice was urgent. Morgan, I know you don't want to talk to anyone right now, but this is important. You need to hear this. I paused. You've got 2 minutes. Last night, I found something on Hannah's phone. Messages between you and her. Something's off. What do you mean? Here are texts from you that don't sound like you, and when I checked your settings, I found a strange number saved under your name. My whole body went cold. You're saying my mother changed Hannah's contacts? Not just that. I think she's been sending fake messages from a different number, making Hannah believe you refused every invitation and even insulted her. I snapped open my laptop the second we hung up. I gathered every backup, emails, receipts, screenshots of payments I'd sent Hannah. I compiled them into a single PDF file titled The Truth. That afternoon, I walked into a small cafe in downtown Denver, one Hannah and I used to frequent. But this time, it wasn't Mom sitting beside her. It was Andrew, his face drawn and tense. Hannah froze when she saw me. Her eyes were swollen, 2 untouched cappuccinos sat on the table. She spoke barely above a whisper, like saying my name too loud might scare me away. Morgan, I didn't know. I opened my laptop, turned the screen toward her, and said quietly but firmly, "It's okay, but you need to look." I scrolled through booking emails, payment confirmations, real text threads between us, the ones I actually sent, the ones she never received. Andrew picked up Hannah's phone and opened her messaging app. "Here," he said, pointing at her contacts. "This number is saved as Morgan, but it's not yours. The messages from it are cold, dismissive, even slightly insulting. I think your mom created it." Hannah didn't say anything. She just lowered her head, tears falling freely. I continued, pulling up my detailed wedding budget. "Here's my bank statement. Every expense, every deposit, even the honeymoon I canceled." Anna's hand trembled as she reached for the edge of the table. "I didn't know. I thought you just pulled away, that you believed I didn't deserve your support." Andrew cleared his throat, his voice cracking. "Last night your mom came over, said Morgan was trying to ruin everything, but something didn't feel right. I checked the text history. At least 3 messages were deleted. Real ones from Morgan, replaced with those fakes." I looked Hannah in the eyes. "And you didn't find it strange when I suddenly disappeared? When the person who spent months helping you plan got pushed out like a stranger?" Hannah sobbed. "I did. But every time I questioned it, Mom had a reason. She showed me proof. Screenshots. I thought they were real, I swear." I didn't respond right away. Outside the window, the first snow of the season had begun to fall, and inside me, something also melted, like the final layer of frost between me and my sister. Andrew gently held Hannah's hand. "We have to confront her. We can't let this go on. Morgan's been through enough." I closed my laptop. "I don't need revenge. I just need the truth. If you want to rebuild this, start from there." Hannah nodded, her eyes bloodshot but steady. "I do, and I won't let her destroy this again." We sat there for a while longer, saying nothing. But for the first time in months, the silence between us wasn't distance. It was a beginning. The family meeting took place on a Sunday afternoon at Aunt Linda's house, my dad's younger sister, and the only person in our family who had ever dared to confront my mother without fear of consequence. The usually cozy living room felt unbearably heavy, as if everyone could sense something irreversible was about to unfold. I sat beside Hannah, with Andrew next to her. My father, Ronald, was in the corner, more solemn than usual. Rachel had been invited, but claimed she had work and didn't show up. My mother, Cheryl, walked in last, clutching her leather handbag and wearing a glare sharp enough to cut glass. "I heard there's something to clear up. Hopefully this isn't another performance," she said, taking a seat across from me like it was a courtroom. I didn't respond. I just opened my laptop and placed it in front of me. "I'll get straight to the point," I said. "I answered the record, showing you deliberately manipulated information, impersonated me, and sabotaged my relationship with Hannah." I mirrored the screen to the TV, showing screenshots of fake texts, messages my mother had sent from another number saved under my name. Messages she sent to Hannah for 3 whole months. Hannah's hands shook, but she spoke up. "Mom, this is the message log. Andrew verified the number was altered in my contacts. You even deleted Morgan's real messages from my phone." My mother gave a familiar, condescending laugh. "You kids are too sensitive. I just adjusted things a little to protect Hannah." "Adjusted?" I frowned. "You made my sister think I looked down on her, refused to help her, and deliberately tried to hurt her? I did what I did for your own good. Morgan, you always control everything. Hannah needed space." Andrew cut in, his voice firmer than I'd ever heard. "No one needs space built on lies and manipulation. You didn't just damage their bond, you nearly turned the wedding into a charade." Cheryl went silent for a beat. Then, as I predicted, she entered phase 2. Angry, ungrateful, the lot of you. Everything I've done was for this family. Morgan, without me, what foundation would you even have to stand on today? I kept my voice unsettlingly calm. You can't guilt me anymore. I've lost too much staying silent just to be a good daughter. That ends now. My father exhaled. Cheryl, I've stayed quiet too long, but what Morgan's shown us, I can't ignore it. Her eyes darted around the room, searching for support. No one spoke. Aunt Linda stood with her arms folded, expression like steel. Then came the final act, tears. I'm just a mother who wants her children happy. How could you all turn on me like this? She said, wiping her face. Morgan, we share blood. How can you humiliate your own mother in front of the family? Anna gripped my hand. No one's humiliating you. We're speaking the truth and setting boundaries. Andrew added firmly, if you can't respect those boundaries, no more control, no more lies, no more sabotage, then you won't be part of the wedding. The room fell silent. Cheryl looked as though someone had punched the last of her pride. You're choosing her over me? She asked Hannah, voice cracking. Hannah replied, calm and clear. I'm choosing truth over manipulation. I'm choosing to build my own future, not be ruled by twisted memories. Aunt Linda stood. This meeting wasn't to gang up on anyone. It was to end a pattern of pain that's gone on too long. If nothing else changes, then at least let it stop. We didn't expect instant repentance, but the simple act of naming the truth out loud in front of everyone was our first taste of freedom. My mother left without another word, and when the door shut behind her, it felt as though the air had been cleared of poison. I turned to Hannah. She squeezed my hand tightly, eyes shining. I owe you an apology and a promise. From now on, we stand together. I gently squeezed back. That's the promise I've always been waiting for. 2 weeks after the family confrontation, I got a text from Hannah. If you're willing, I want you to be my bridesmaid again, not out of duty, but because I truly need you there. I read that sentence 3 times. Then I replied, I'll do it, but this time on clear terms. We met at a small cafe on Colfax, the same place we used to plan family trips years ago. I didn't beat around the bush. I'll help you, but I'm not going back to being the unpaid coordinator. I'll participate, but only at a healthy level. I'm not the dumping ground for pressure anymore. Hannah nodded. No deflection, no vague apologies this time. I get it, and I respect that. We hugged. No more words were needed. Some cracks don't disappear, but they can heal if both sides want healing. Over the next weeks, I helped coordinate the bridesmaids, picked new dresses, this time chosen by Hannah herself. I stayed out of vendor emails, budgeting, and there was no fronting the costs and sorting it later. Dad quietly supported us both. He showed up to every rehearsal, silent but steady. As for Mom, after that meeting, she no longer acted like the director of the event. No one forced her to change, but with pressure from Aunt Linda and Andrew, she finally started seeing a therapist. She hasn't apologized, but she's kept her distance. And for me, a boundary respected is often more valuable than a forced apology. The wedding day came with a quiet blue sky and gentle sun. Hannah walked out in a pure white lace gown, holding lavender, smiling at me in the mirror as I fixed her veil. You know what I used to fear most? She asked, eyes glistening. That I wouldn't be here anymore? She nodded. But now I know that fear wasn't about losing you. It was about how I let others pull me away from you. I gently squeezed her hand and whispered, we still have years to make it right. The ceremony unfolded under golden evening light, no drama, no interruptions. Mom sat quietly in the second row, just a guest. She didn't interfere, didn't try to hijack speeches, didn't steal anyone's spotlight. Hannah cried reading her vows. Andrew's hands shook placing the ring. And I stood there, not as the scapegoat, not the outsider, but as a sister, in the truest sense. After the wedding, we didn't return to how things were, but what we have now is a bond built on truth, healthy boundaries, and the deliberate choice to hold on. The following summer, Hannah gave birth to her first daughter. When I visited, she placed the baby in my arms. Guess her name? I looked at the baby, gray, new eyes like Hannah, high forehead like Andrew. Don't tell me. Her middle name is Morgan, because if she ever needs an example of strength and self-respect, I want her to look at that name first. I couldn't hold back my tears. That same year, Tyler proposed to me on a trip to Oregon. No roses, no candles. Just a simple question after a hike. Are you ready to start a new chapter, where you finally put yourself first? I nodded. We held a small engagement party, just close friends and the people who truly mattered. Mom wasn't invited. Not out of spite, but because I've learned. Blood doesn't entitle anyone to a place in your life. Who we allow in, that is our choice. And this time, I chose me. Chose love that doesn't cost my peace. Chose family, but not at the cost of myself. Morgan's story is a powerful reminder that family bonds can't survive without honesty and respect. In real life, some of the deepest wounds come not from strangers, but from emotional manipulation within our own bloodlines. But like Morgan, you have every right to set boundaries, protect your worth, and choose relationships that truly honor you. Blood does not give anyone the right to cause harm. And sometimes walking away from the role of the fixer is the first real step toward freedom. What do you think about Morgan's journey and the choices she made? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to follow the channel for more powerful stories about family, truth, and courage in everyday life. My name is Madeline. I'm 29 years old and live in a small apartment in Logan Square, Chicago. I work as a content coordinator at a digital marketing firm. Nothing glamorous, but stable enough to support myself and, as if by instinct, cover all the financial gaps in my family. I have no kids, no student loans, and no designer habits. Each month, after paying rent, insurance, and basic expenses, whatever is left usually goes straight into my mother's account. Janet. As if it were some unspoken obligation I never dared question. Some months it's 300, other months close to 1,000, depending on whether my dad's car broke down again or if my sister Brittany couldn't afford her design software subscription. My family lives in Aurora, over an hour's drive from downtown Chicago. My father used to be a maintenance worker at a public high school, but after a knee injury sidelined him permanently, he retired early and now watches the house and garden. My mom only recently started working again at a grocery store after years of being a stay-at-home mom. Neither of them is good with money, but they've mastered the art of saying just the right thing to make me feel guilty for not helping. Brittany is another story entirely. She's 24, studied graphic design, and works freelance, if you can call it that. Every time she misses a deadline or loses a client, I get a message heavy with pressure, like, "Maddie, I'm drowning. I'm short $400 for rent. I seriously don't know what to do." And just like that, I'm tapping through my phone, transferring money like a machine. No real thank you, just a sad face emoji or a purple heart. My younger brother Ethan is 21 and in his senior year at college in Champaign. He also reaches out often for textbooks, school supplies, even Uber rides home for the holidays. I've sent him at least $2,000 this semester alone. Every time we talk, he barely says hello before asking, "Hey, my car just got declined. Can you front me real quick?" I used to think I was helping because I loved them. Lately, I'm starting to wonder, is love really supposed to be this one-sided? I never asked for the money back, never complained. To them, I'm the one with a steady job, no spouse, no kids. You don't need much, Maddie. So I'm expected to help. And every time I hesitate, my mom lets out this long, theatrical sigh. You're the only one in this family holding it together. If even you turn your back, what do we have left? That line cuts deeper than anything else, and once again, I open my wallet. I thought I'd grown used to being their safety net, but deep down, I knew not one of them has ever asked if I'm okay, if I'm tired, or overwhelmed, or struggling. They only call when they need something, nothing more, nothing less. I don't resent helping them, but I've started noticing how during every important milestone in my life, a promotion, an award, buying my first apartment, they're never there. No cards, no family dinners. But the moment Brittany loses a client, Ethan fails a class, or my mom gets her hours cut, I'm expected to show up like it's written in my There are nights I stare at my account balance, asking myself, how is someone single, child-free, working full-time always broke? Then I scroll through my transfer history and see the names of those I love lined up like a tax spreadsheet. I never imagined the very relationships I held sacred would be the same ones quietly eating me alive. I started planning the barbecue on a March afternoon, just as the winter snow melted and the first tulips began peeking through at the park down the street. It was a tradition passed down from my grandmother, Eleanor, the woman who taught me how to season ribs and make potato salad just right using an old wooden spoon and her uncanny memory. She passed away when I was 16, but every summer, the smell of charcoal on the grill still made me feel like she was watching. Every year, I took charge of hosting the family's summer barbecue, an event no one was allowed to miss. This year, I decided to make it bigger than ever, not because there was something to celebrate, but because I felt the need to hold on to whatever realness was left in this family, in the middle of a mess that felt more distant by the day. I booked a public garden space in Naperville, close enough for my parents and siblings to drive, but private enough to avoid strangers. I applied for the permit early, making sure no one else could claim the spot. I paid out of pocket to rent 2 large tents, one for grilling and one for dining. I also rented a full set of wooden tables and chairs, mint green tablecloths, balloons, string lights, and hired a 3-piece acoustic band to play Grandma's old favorites mixed with some country songs Brittany liked. This year's guest list had 34 names, relatives from both sides, my dad's old classmates, my mom's former co-workers, Brittany's friends, and a few of mine the family treated like their own. I sent out e-vites in early April with RSVP links, and most people responded quickly. Wouldn't miss it for the world. Can't wait for Madeline's peach pie. Bringing my daughter too. Place a large order for farm-fresh ingredients, organic beef, lemongrass chicken, German-style bratwursts. I even ordered a custom 2-tiered chocolate cake from a bakery where my mom used to work years ago. They remembered me as Eleanor's granddaughter and said they'd make a cake worthy of the Parker legacy. For 3 months, every evening after work, I sat in the kitchen with my notebook, drafting menus, checking market prices, comparing delivery fees for tents and sound systems. I didn't complain. I didn't wait for anyone to offer help. I wanted everything to be just right for my grandmother and for the family I still believed could be brought back together. One evening in mid-June, while folding pastel cloth napkins into a bin with a new picnic cutlery set, Brittany texted, "Do you need us to do anything this year? Or are you doing it all again?" I chuckled. At least she knew the pattern. I just replied, "Just bring your smile and be kind." 2 days later, my mom called. Her voice was lower than usual, though she tried to sound cheerful. "You're going all out again, huh, Madeline? Do we really need to spend this much?" I want it to be meaningful. If Grandma saw it, she'd be proud. She paused a few seconds, then said, "Yeah, she probably would." I pictured Grandma Eleanor's warm eyes as she looked over everyone sitting under the tent. The breeze rustling through the trees, the smell of barbecue filling the field. I wanted that moment to exist, even if only for a day. The night before the barbecue, I packed the last of the decorations into my car, double-checked the meat order, and confirmed the band's arrival time. Everything was set. I sat at my kitchen table and reviewed the budget one last time. The total came to nearly $2,200. Not cheap on my salary, but I didn't hesitate. My family was worth it. Or at least, that's what I believed. 4 days before the barbecue, while I was carefully labeling each sauce jar with BBQ Grandma style in my neatest handwriting, my phone rang. The screen showed Dad with his usual profile photo, an old blurry picture of him holding a fishing rod by Lake Michigan. I picked up, cheerful. "Dad, I'm finishing up the sauce bottles. Tomorrow I'm picking up the cake and ordering extra folding tables. Do you think we need anything else?" On the other end, an unusual pause. Then Walter's voice came through, gravelly, hesitant. "Madeline, I need to have a serious talk with you." My hand froze mid-label. That tone, low, heavy, straight to the point, was always a sign something was wrong. "What's going on, Dad?" "Your mom, she lost her job last week. The grocery store cut staff unexpectedly. She was new, so she was first on the list. I stood still, the sauce jar suddenly heavy in my hand. But he wasn't finished. That's not all. Brittany's car broke down again. This time it's the transmission. The mechanic quoted over $1,300, and if she doesn't fix it, she can't take that job near Milwaukee next week. Oh no. And Ethan, he called yesterday. His fall tuition's gone up, the school changed programs. He needs nearly 900 more, plus books. I sank into a chair, heart pounding. All these expenses, everything hitting at once. Madeline, I'm sorry to tell you this so close to the event, but this year, we just can't go through with the barbecue. I looked up at the guest list still pinned to the board. Every name carefully underlined, green checks next to each RSVP. The plan I'd been building for 3 months was unraveling with just a few sentences. Dad, I already put down deposits, tent rentals, the lights, the band. We could scale it back, make it simpler, or I can cover the rest. Didn't we do that last year? No, not this time. You've done too much already. Everyone knows and appreciates it, but I can't let you carry this burden again. But it's Grandma's tradition. I've nearly finished everything. Exactly. And I don't want to ruin it by letting you handle everything alone. That's not right. I heard him swallow hard, not out of emotion, but like someone playing the part of being reasonable. What I really heard was the door shutting, with me on the outside. I hope you understand. Let's take a break this year. Next year we'll come back bigger. The family just needs time to get back on its feet. I wanted to protest, to say all the reasons, to ask outright, why does no one ever ask if I'm okay? Why is it when you need money, you call right away? But when I try to do something for the family, you all disappear. But I said nothing, just nodded robotically and whispered, okay, as if I hadn't spent my entire spring preparing for a day everyone else took for granted. After the call ended, I sat for hours at the kitchen table, staring at the boxes of decorations, the scented candles, the freshly laundered tablecloths. Outside the window, the June wind rustled through the trees, sounding uncannily like Grandma's old whistle. I turned on my laptop, opened the cancellation email to the rental company. Their reply was quick. Due to late notice, you will only receive a 40% refund. The band had already rebooked for a wedding. I didn't blame them. I just wondered if anyone in this family truly understood what it felt like to be the outsider in the middle of the people you loved most. That night, I didn't sleep. I scrolled through every old message in the family group chat. From the beginning of the month till now, they'd all been chatting like usual, talking about Brittany's dress, about the cousin's salad everyone looked forward to. No one hinted anything was wrong, and yet in one phone call, everything burst like a bubble. I still hadn't cried. Not because I was strong, just too shocked. I kept repeating one thing in my head. The barbecue hadn't even happened, but it felt like they had decided to cut me out long before it ever could. I woke up Saturday morning to sunlight pouring through the window like some kind of mockery. The sky was cloudless, the air cool and crisp, the exact kind of weather Grandma used to call a day made for charcoal and memories. Even though the family barbecue had been canceled, I couldn't sit still. Instinct, or maybe just muscle memory from years of being the keeper of the tradition, pushed me to get up, make coffee, and start hauling things out to the apartment rooftop. I live on the 6th floor, and from my unit I can see a small rooftop terrace divided into squares for each household. I brought out the string lights I'd planned to hang on the willow tree at Naperville Park. Now they looped around the rusted iron railing. Each bulb lit up like a shaky note, dim, but enough to remind me I wasn't completely alone in the silence. I walked to the nearby grocery store and picked up 2 hamburgers, a small bag of chips, and a ready-made salad box. I didn't want anything fancy anymore. There was no one left to impress. The cashier, who recognized me from past barbecue hauls, smiled and asked, "Smaller party this time?" I just nodded with a soft smile. Didn't want to explain. Didn't want to say this year's guest list had exactly one name. When I got back, I could hear laughter coming from the neighbor's balcony. A child yelled about dropping a hot dog, someone's grandma clapped the table with mock scolding, someone else blasted country music over a Bluetooth speaker. I glanced through the windscreen divider. Part of me wanted to knock and borrow some hot sauce, but a bigger part of me shrank back, afraid they'd ask, "Where's your family?" I set a mini grill on my old metal table, lit the charcoal, and watched the fire catch onto the cold briquettes. The smoke stung my nose, not from the grill, but from the memory of standing next to Grandma Eleanor, her voice reminding me, "Don't let the flame get too high, meat'll burn outside and stay raw inside," while she poured iced tea for the guests. I pulled up our Summer BBQ 2008 playlist on my phone, an old family mix passed through generations of hard drives. Dolly Parton's voice came through soft, "Coat of Many Colors." I laughed out loud. Grandma always swore that song was her life story, even though she wasn't a Tennessee mountain girl. I laid out a red and white checkered tablecloth on a small wooden table, added 2 paper plates, 2 soda cans, and a mini apple pie I'd picked up from the corner store. The table looked like it was set for 2, but the second chair sat empty. I spoke aloud, pretending Grandma was there, still in her apron and smiling. "You see this, Grandma? No matter what, I'm not letting this tradition die. Not while I'm still breathing." I ate slowly. The burger wasn't as good as in past years. The fries were a little cold and the music kept cutting out. But I sat there. I followed through on the promise I made myself. Even if it's just one person, the barbecue would happen. After cleaning up, I posted a photo of the humble table to the family group chat, captioned, "Tradition held, even solo, Grandma still smiling." Ashley left a heart. Ethan sent a pie emoji. Mom wrote, "You always know how to make Grandma proud." No one asked where I was. No one asked who I ate with. No one said sorry. Didn't expect anything in return. But that silence, it echoed louder than any rejection. Before going to bed, I took the lights down from the railing and folded them neatly. I stared at the soft yellow bulbs in my hands and thought, maybe next time, I'll use them for a party where I'm actually want. Even if it's just a small dinner with people who aren't blood. But mean it. Sunday morning, I woke up with a sore back after a restless night. Even though yesterday was just a simple balcony meal, my heart felt like it had lived through an entire summer of being left behind. I made coffee, opened my phone out of habit, intending to post a few leftover photos from the night before, as a reminder that I hadn't given up. Instagram reopened to the story feed, and at the top was a glowing circle. Brittany posted 2 hours ago. I tapped it. A video appeared, zoomed in on a table, decked out with pastel plastic plates, checkered paper cups, and a sunflower bouquet centerpiece. Brittany's voice played in the background. "Just finishing up the setup, gotta make it cute for the gram, right?" So there was money to make it cute, I thought to myself. I tapped again to be sure. No way, right? That tablecloth. That was the exact one I had ordered online. Limited edition, delivered a week early, pale mint green with white stripes. I had sent a photo of it to Brittany nearly a month ago asking for her opinion. She'd said, "Looks kinda tacky, sis, but if Grandma likes it, I guess it's fine." I exited the story and went to Brittany's Facebook. On her wall, she had just posted a photo album set to friends only. I wasn't on that list, but an old friend, Jamie, had liked it and commented. I clicked on Jamie's profile and found a shared image. Brittany and a group of smiling people posed in front of a large party table. The angle was unclear, but in the background stood a white brick wall and a gray moo wooden door, unmistakable. I zoomed in. Yes, that was my parents' backyard wall. A chill ran down my spine. I left Facebook and opened Snapchat. Ethan always posted just for fun. Sure enough, his latest story read, "BBQ kinda lit." It was a video of a group sitting around a portable grill, Ethan holding a beer, grinning ear to ear. He flipped the camera, and for a split second I saw the string lights I had ordered for my party, the rare, warm, golden globe bulbs. I remembered because they took 3 weeks to ship. I opened Ethan's message from 10 days ago. "Hey sis, I need $300 for class fees. If I don't pay in time, I'll have to drop the course." I wired it immediately. I believed no one would lie about education for money. Now I knew I was wrong. I opened Venmo and checked my transaction history. $300 to Ethan, $400 to Brittany last week for a car repair deposit, $250 to Mom before that for uncovered prescription meds. The anger didn't hit like thunder, it trickled in, slow, relentless, like water dripping on cold stone. I didn't feel shocked, I felt humiliated. I went back to Instagram and searched for a family acquaintance, Gina, who'd been at our barbecue last year and was close to Mom. She'd just posted a new story, a buffet table, and the caption, "Best backyard party in years. Patricia and Walter, y'all nailed it." I turned off my phone and placed it face down on the table. The room suddenly felt suffocating. I thought about Dad's call, his voice cracking, saying there wasn't enough money to host anything. Mom had lost her job. Brittany had no car. Ethan couldn't afford school. So why were they partying, laughing, and using the exact things I had prepared? I was sitting motionless in the small kitchen when my phone lit up. A clear notification from Instagram popped up. "Brittany is live, watch now." I almost ignored it, too drained to witness anything else about my sister after this morning's revelations. But instinct whispered that something was off. I tapped in. The screen flickered with shaky footage, lights strung overhead, twinkling. Below were long tables draped in white cloths, fresh flowers in jars, clear plastic cups filled with wine and cocktails. Brittany beamed, the camera panned. "Welcome to our annual Parker Backyard Bash, everyone. Say hi." The scene hit me like a punch to the chest. I recognized it instantly. My parents' backyard, the same familiar corner where I had hosted tents and celebrations for the past 7 years. But this time, I wasn't there. Instead, more than 30 people dressed up, laughed, and chatted. Uncle Frank from Minnesota was there, the one who said he couldn't come because travel costs were too high. Aunt April, Mom's best friend, held a plate of grilled shrimp and garlic bread, the kind of menu I could never afford. Music boomed from large speakers near the fence, where I used to hang LED string lights. A DJ in a black shirt adjusted the volume behind a glowing sign. "Parker Family Reunion, Summer 2024. Brittany turned the camera toward my mom. She wore a blush pink maxi dress, her hair curled, a pearl necklace around her neck as she smiled at a waiter serving cocktails. She looked up and waved at the camera. So she still had a job, at least enough for a salon appointment, but not enough to help with my event. The camera kept moving, landing on Ethan dancing with a few friends. In his hand was a craft beer. One I'd seen at Whole Foods, $14 for a six-pack. "Ethan, say what's up," Brittany shouted on the live stream. "Best BBQ ever," he yelled, raising his hands like he was at a music festival. My heart raced. The phone's audio echoed through my empty kitchen. I no longer felt like I was sitting. Every sense condensed into one silent blow. I leaned in, searching the screen for anything. A caption saying, "Just kidding, a joke." But no. Everything was real. Too real. Then Brittany turned the phone to my dad. He stood behind a large grill, wearing a Grill King cap and an apron embroidered with "Walter's BBQ Legend since 1985. One hand held a spatula, the other raised a beer. "Thanks for coming, everyone. Nothing's more precious than family and tradition." Nothing's more precious than family, I repeated in my mind like a cruel joke. Then why me, the planner, the funder, the one who never missed a single year? Why was I the only one not there? Being ripped out of your own life doesn't feel like rage. It feels cold, dense, and silent like ice. I began taking screenshots. One by one, Brittany laughing, Ethan sipping beer, my mom eating fruit salad, my dad slicing ribs. The live stream lasted nearly 17 minutes before Brittany ended it, saying, "Y'all online getting jealous, time to keep it private." The screen faded to black, and I still sat there, phone trembling slightly in my hand, lips pressed so tightly they bled. And I didn't even notice. I checked our family group chat, no new messages. No one mentioned a party. No late invites, no, "sorry, just a casual get-together." silence, as if they were burying me alive in a different reality. Right then, I understood. I wasn't forgotten. I was excluded, deliberately, with planning, with everyone's agreement. I stood up, shaking, and walked to the fridge. The small apple pie I bought yesterday sat untouched, a silent witness. I stared at it for a long moment. Then I opened the wine cabinet, poured a glass, raised it, and whispered, "Cheers to the perfect family gathering. Without me?" Then I drank it all, not to forget, but to remember, because something inside me had just shattered, and I knew from that moment on I would never be the same. Madeline, again. I sat in my apartment until nearly midnight, no lights on, just the glow from my phone screen casting pale light on my face. Each time I replayed Brittany's live stream, every frame felt like another blade twisting deeper. I no longer wondered why I was left out. I started asking, when did they begin planning to erase me? I reopened my message history. On June 3rd, Mom texted, "Ellen, I am so sorry, but can you send me $300 for my heart meds? Insurance won't cover them yet because I just switched jobs." 3 days later, Brittany messaged, "Hey sis, I need to fix my car urgently for a contract meeting. They're holding the deadline." Then came Ethan with his usual line, "My college changed the program again. Can you spot me 300 just this once?" I scrolled through every text, carefully noting each amount I'd transferred since March. Nearly $2,200. Enough to cover a full barbecue, tent rental, decorations, a live band, even the DJ I saw in the live stream. Nothing was coincidental. Every emergency, every plea for help was perfectly timed with the party's planning. They didn't just lie, they coordinated. Everyone had a role. A different excuse to draw money from me, making me believe they were all struggling, when in truth, they were staging a celebration I wasn't welcome to attend. A chill settled over me, deep and unmoving. My mind flashed through past sacrifices like silent film reels, skipping a Miami trip to help Brittany with rent, canceling my yoga membership to buy Ethan's textbooks, delaying dental work because Mom said Dad needs the water heater fixed right away. I'd always believed I gave out of love. Turns out I was just a walking ATM, no PIN required. I didn't sleep that night. I opened Excel and did something I never thought I'd do. Logged every transfer I'd ever made. Names, dates, reasons, line by line. A cold, unfeeling spreadsheet. Each number, a moment I was deceived. Each note, a wound that no longer bled, but hadn't yet healed. I went back to Instagram and searched the hashtag ParkerBBQ 2024. Not surprisingly, nearly 80 posts popped up. One of Dad's friends, Craig, had posted a selfie with Uncle Frank, captioned, "Gets better every year. Walter and Patricia knocked it out of the park." One of Mom's former co-workers wrote, "Can't believe this party was held in someone's backyard. Absolutely stunning." Not a single mention of me. No one asked, "Where's Madeline?" They knew, or worse, they didn't care. I reopened the family group chat. It was practically empty. My last message was a photo of my one-person table, captioned, "Keeping the tradition alive, even if it's just me." Ashley reacted with a heart. Ethan sent a laughing emoji. Mom replied, "You're amazing." Grandma's probably smiling down from heaven. Now I get it. That wasn't encouragement, that was a diversion, a way to silence me, to keep me believing I still belonged. I looked around my apartment. The unopened boxes of decorations, the plastic cups still in packaging, the electric grill that never got used. Everything stood untouched. Silent evidence. And I finally understood. The party wasn't canceled. I was. I set down my glass, opened my laptop, and created a new folder. The truth. I uploaded every photo, video, message, and transfer receipt. Not for revenge, but to remind myself. Truth doesn't need to be believed to matter. It just needs to be seen. I didn't confront them right away. I needed time to observe. like someone so deeply betrayed they no longer trust even their own instincts. 3 days after the party, no one in the family mentioned it. No explanation, no apology, not even a casual check-in. Then, on Wednesday morning, while I was compiling monthly reports for my boss, my phone buzzed non-stop. A message from my mother popped up. "Sweetheart, we just got a notice that the utility bill is overdue. Can you send $280 like last month? I'll pay you back soon." I stared at the words as if they'd been sent from another universe. They kept going, like nothing had happened, as if I'd obediently transfer money, just like always. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my truth folder on my laptop and selected 4 sharp screenshots from the live stream. My father grinning with a beer next to the buffet table, my mother posing beside a server in a black vest, Brittany recording a selfie video in the middle of the crowd, and Ethan raising a beer can with the caption, "Best BBQ ever." I captured the payment history from my apps dating back to March. The total was $2,230, each accompanied by messages with urgent words like tuition, heart meds, car repair. I posted it all on my personal Facebook. The caption read, "My family said we couldn't afford to host our tradition this year. Said mom lost her job. My brother couldn't pay tuition. My sister's car broke down. 3 days later, they threw the biggest party we've ever had and deliberately left me out. Thank you for teaching me a lesson about boundaries. I will never again pay tuition for betrayal." And within less than an hour, the post had over 200 reactions. Former coworkers, college friends, even neighbors from my parents' street started leaving comments, from unbelievable to "this is beyond cruel." One person messaged me privately, "Madeline, I used to be the family ATM too. Eventually, I had to close my wallet to save my heart." That afternoon, the family group chat exploded. Brittany wrote first, "Are you out of your mind? Why would you drag the family online like that?" Ethan chimed in next. "You're blowing this way out of proportion. We just had a little get-together. What's the big deal?" Mom messaged me privately. "You're tearing this family apart over your selfish emotions. Is this how you repay the people who raised you?" I said nothing, but my father did. His message was short and so cold, I read it 3 times before I believed it. "You always think you're better than everyone just because you make money, but you'll never understand that sometimes a family needs space. Space without you. That's why we didn't tell you anything from the start." I sat there, hands clenched, but my heart felt strangely lighter. Not because he was right, but because he'd finally admitted it. That night, I sent my last message to the group. "Starting today, I won't send another cent. All financial requests can go to the person you chose to replace me." I blocked all bank accounts linked to family, changed my Venmo, PayPal, email, and cloud storage passwords. I called my bank to confirm that no one but me had access to my savings. I stayed up until midnight canceling every auto payment ever tied to the name Parker. The next day, I bought a small bouquet and walked to the park near my home. I found a bench under the old oak tree where my grandmother used to take me after school, and I laid the flowers down. I didn't cry, I just whispered. "My grandma, I kept the tradition, but I can't hold on to a family that won't hold on to me." From that moment on, I was no longer the one carrying responsibility for people who used blood ties as a shield. I was no longer Madeline, the financial fixer. I was simply me, someone learning to love herself again, without needing anyone's permission. Madeline's story is a clear reminder that endless sacrifice can turn your kindness into your own undoing. In real life, many, especially women, are trapped in the role of provider, forgetting their own worth. When trust is abused, walking away isn't cruelty, it's self-defense. Real family isn't measured in dollars, but in respect and honesty. You have every right to say enough. What's your take on Madeline's choice? Was she too harsh or just finally protecting herself? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to follow the channel for more powerful stories about family, boundaries, and self-worth.